ये वाला दरवाजे बंद
Good
कर।
afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. Please stand as we begin our meeting. I'd like to welcome you to the Rotary Club of Pleasanton, the world's greatest Rotary Club. The meeting is being recorded, as you can see, and will be available to be viewed on our
तुम नहीं कर
website.
सकती हूँ मैं अगर मैं कुछ कह रही हूँ तो।
Mark and Gary for taking care of that. I think we may have a visitor or two here. I just want to welcome all of them and hope you enjoyed today's meeting. If you'd like to know more about our club, please let us know. And or you can talk to Ricky. And I also want to thank today's greeter that stepped up at the last minute, Rena Gupta, because Wheeler couldn't make it. Thank you, Rena. And Pete McDonald for attendance. Thank you, Peter. And then we also can't go without thanking Julio and Kathy and Ricky and Andrew for all their work. So thank you so much. So since I haven't seen Steve Baker for a while, Steve, will you please lead us in the pledge? To the flag. Thank you. You may be seated. So, Larry, I was going to ask you to do the We Care. Can you walk around and take care of that for us? But maybe we should be talking about you under We Care. So, what I wanted to do a little differently this year under the We Care part of our program, and again, just a suggestion, if you are talking about something good or not something that we need to say prayers, do this every week. So we'll resume recording, right? Ricky, thank you. And now it's time for our inspiration from Andrew Evans. Give it up for Andrew. Our Halloween Spirit Run chair.
So in the event that we have a fantastic speaker speaking on AI today, I figured I would leave ChatGPT, which is an AI software, to come up with the inspiration for us today. So what I typed into the chat real quick is inspirational quotes for Rotary. First thing that popped up, you guys will all recognize, service above self. Number two is the power of one, if fearless and focused, is formidable, but the power of many working together is better. And that was said by Gloria Arroyo. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And that was said by Gandhi. Rotary has a unique ability to bring together people from all walks of life to unite them in a common purpose of making a positive difference in the world. And that was said by Unknown. There's quite a few unknowns in this. Rotary is not just an organization, it is a way of life. It teaches us to be compassionate, kind, and to always strive for the greater good. Rotary is a beacon of hope in a world that sometimes seems dark and divided. It reminds us that we can always make a difference no matter how small. Rotary is not about doing big things, it is about doing small things with great love and passion. Rotary is not about giving back, it's about creating lasting change in the lives of those we serve. Rotary shows us that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they come together with a shared vision and purpose. The true measure of success is not in what we achieve for ourselves, but in what we do for others.
Wow. Well done. Thank you, Andrew, as always. I don't think we have our usual visiting Rotarian here today. Any other visiting Rotarians? No, I don't see any. Just want to make sure. And other than our speaker, I don't think we have any guests today. So we'll introduce Bram later. So we'll move right on. I would like to just make a couple more announcements. I want to congratulate and thank Clark Payan for stepping up as our treasurer for our club's foundation. Thank you, Clark. And I also think Mike Hosterman has a couple comments to make about some of our club fun activities. Give it up for Mike. That's not, you didn't get it very good. Yeah, let's try that again. Give it up for Mike.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to say, something about Jeff Williams. This is the first time he's attended a meeting since we've been here at Ruby and Roses. So,
Steve Baker.
oh, and Steve Baker also? Oh, Steve Baker. All right. Okay, as far as Club Fun, as you guys may or may not know, I'm in charge of Club Fun, which will be, I mean, what else can I say? It's gonna be a fun year. I've got Joyce and Bob Shapiro that have stepped up and are doing a lot of work in the Club Fund committee. We still have a couple of people that we're going to ask to join the committee. As far as upcoming events, Progressive Dinner is gonna be on October 14th. We're gonna have a cocktail party at, I don't mean to have my back to you the whole time. Cocktail party at Tom and Sue Fox's. And then we'll break up and we'll go to dinner, various houses for the dinner portion. And
But you need people to volunteer to host?
we need people to volunteer to host. You know, Ricky has a hard time letting go, you know, he wants to do the whole, okay, Ricky, you're now on the committee. But I'm gonna send out an email and people are gonna volunteer their houses and we're gonna try to get maybe 8 people in each house, something like that. So don't be shy about volunteering your house, especially if you've never done it before. And we're working, I think we're working with, are we working with Sunshine? Okay, we're working with Sunshine Saloon as far as, having them, provide the food at the main house. So it's going to be, the idea is it's not going to be very much work if you host. In fact, it's probably easier to host than if you don't host. Right. Especially if your wife is on board. So that's Progressive Dinner. That's all I have to say about Progressive Dinner.
I have a question. So if we,
This is not the question period. Yeah, Bob.
volunteering,
Oh,
if we all agree to host, wouldn't it just be like we're just having a normal dinner with?
yeah. Or alternatively, we can all come over to your house. And we'll have prime rib. And then the next thing that I wanted to mention to everybody, including Kathy Alameda and Audrey Horning back there. They're writing checks, so we need a check if if you're writing. The third Thursday event in August will be at Brava Garden, this place right across the street here.
The old Cabana Day.
The old Cabana Days will be, I think we're gonna be in the back. And it's gonna be an awesome event, as was Sabio. This is all thanks to Joyce and Bob Shapiro. They know everybody, they know everything. If you guys
Good thing we're not a program.
like need a
Are we done yet?
if you need a friend or you need something to do, I would suggest you get together with Bob and Joyce. They know everybody and they know everything. They're awesome. Thank you very much.
The update. Give it up for Mike. All right, awesome. Okay, I almost forgot our Zoomers are here today. Hello, Anshu and Steve.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Hey, Steve, we can't hear you.
Hey Steve, hey, how are you?
Okay, good.
See you.
Good to have you here, even though you're not really here. Okay. And then the next thing I wanted to do was, Ricky, did you want to speak briefly about the August 31st event? Are you ready for that or not?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, do you remember
Yeah.
the confirmation you made to me in writing? Okay,
Thank you.
here, you're welcome.
Caught me off guard. So our new tradition is that, of course, we're meeting the first, second, and fourth Thursdays for lunch. On the third Thursday, we have Third Thursday. And when there's a fifth Thursday, which happens about once every 3 months, we're doing a social at someone's house or business, so I volunteered. And you're all invited, but our focus is for our Red Badgers to come and help them get things accomplished to go from red to blue badge. We've got a bunch of Red Badgers that joined last year, but you're all welcome. It's in Livermore, so you have to make a short drive, but it'll be worth the drive because I'll have good food and good drink, and we'll have a good time.
Also furniture. Good furniture too. And that your neighbor won't be mowing the lawn this time, was that right? Okay, good. You're a good friend. Next, Andrew, I want to just give you an opportunity. Anything new on the Halloween Spirit Run that we all need to sign up to help for?
No, it's still happening on October 22nd. I hope to see you all there. The committees are meeting. If you are part of the committee, please make sure you guys are going to those meetings regularly. We are having overall Spirit Run committee meetings. I believe our next one is going to be held at either my office or Mark Tanis's office. Don't look, okay. So, and I believe I sent out a calendar invite to all the folks that we've asked to come, but we are more than welcome to have anybody show up and want to be a part of it and give us your ideas. So thank you all, appreciate it. I believe the next meeting I said was August 17th.
Yeah,
I'll
Okay,
send out another
and-
email through Club Run.
all right. Yes, that'd be great. Andrew, get that out. Gary, you're pointing at me. Did you need my attention or you want to say something?
Yeah, nothing like forgetting something to get done on your term. So I'm here embarrassed with some late mail, but I have Gary Harrington, the privilege of having you here, and Nancy. Can you come up for a recognition? So, yeah, you want to read it?
I'd be happy to.
So, from the Paul Harris Society for District 5170, Nancy Rose Harrington is a member of the District 5170 Paul Harris Society, as well as Gary. So there's 2 certificates here for both of you, and thank you so much.
Can you tell us, Gary, what that represents?
They give a lot, they sacrifice of themselves.
Yes. Great, thank you. Thank you, Gary, for that. I appreciate it. So another new thing I'd like to do is just recognize people's birthdays that are here and anniversaries, not only for the club, but from a wedding standpoint. And so I'm really pleased that Chris Miller's here today because he had a birthday, July 4th, right, Chris? Congratulations. There were 4 other club members that had birthdays, but they're not here, so we're not going to talk about them. And then we have wedding anniversaries. We heard about one that's coming up tomorrow, right, Kathy? 55 years. Congratulations. Yes. And Dick Stafford, 52 years, July 11th. Fantastic. Wow. And you're still alive. Good, very good. And Larry and Carolyn Annis just celebrated 50 years of marriage. Wow. Even after the lobotomy, we're still together. Okay, good. And another icon in our club, Mike Hosterman, 43 years, July 6th. Wow, that's fantastic. Where's Mike go? Okay.
I was gonna say, I've been happily married for 30 years.
Oh, there you go. Of course, you're gonna say something. Good. All right. And then Bob Brown. Bob, you're here. Wonderful. 34 years, July 29th, right? All right, fantastic. And some club anniversaries that are pretty amazing. And I'm so glad that Jack Brass is here today because he celebrated 58 years as a member of our club. Is that right, Jack? All right. And everybody else is not here, so I'm not going to say that. All right. So, yes, sir. How old is our club? It was, about 58 years. Well, all right. That was a trick question. Thank you for, yeah, no more questions to the president. Okay. I'll have to find you again. All right. So that takes care of that. And then next, it's my pleasure to introduce my friend and one of our new members, Seema Chawla. And she's going to give us a 5-minute red badge talk. Give it up, please. Seema.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Seema Chawla, and I've been working in Pleasanton for about 15 years. I've been an entrepreneur for about 23 years, and founder of Tech Valley Corporation. We are a full spectrum of IT services with a focus on digital transformation, including cloud migration and AI/ML. My husband, who's the CTO of the company, is also here, and he'll enlighten you guys today on all the topic about AI. I know everyone wants to hear about that. I heard about it in our last meeting when I was here. So he's a wonderful man, I can say. I mean, since I'm talking about myself, he's been a pillar of strength for me in every aspect of my life. Without him, I think I wouldn't be here among you guys, as I had to face many health challenges, and it was Almighty and him that actually pulled me through. So I can't thank him enough for that. I have 2 wonderful kids. My daughter, she's a senior this year. She will be going to college next year. We don't know which one. So it's a pretty intense year for us. She wants to be an aerospace engineer. So she lives, breathes, dreams, everything about space. And she actually asked me if I could come and give presentation and teach everyone about space. And I asked Brad, hopefully she'll be here one day showing you guys everything about space. Yeah, and I have a son who's in middle school. He'll be in high school next year. So I started my business, Tech Valley, when I saw the downsides of the intense product-centric culture at IT companies that were not meeting the needs of most of the companies here in the Bay Area or around the world, in fact. I'll let him talk about the technology more, but after being a successful entrepreneur, I decided to explore my true calling, which has always been to serve humanity, to be in the public services field. And I started doing a lot of volunteer work with nonprofits. And that's when I met Steve. He reached out to me if I would like to be a member with the Pleasanton Chamber of Commerce. And I said, sure, why not? You know, I would love to do something. And I'm on the board of directors for Pleasanton Chamber of Commerce. I'm on board of directors with Sunflower Hills. Ricky brought me there. Thanks, Ricky. It's a wonderful organization. And I also work with a nonprofit called World Vision. We help many underprivileged people around the Bay Area. And I just recently got appointed for Alameda County's Housing Authority Commission. So we focus on working with the homeless. I'm not sure how much impact I'll be able to make there because state currently doesn't have any funding anymore. So we're working on that. We'll see what we can do. So here I am at the greatest Rotary Club in the world, and I'm hoping with your support and organization and with your guidance, I can make small impact in our community and in people's life, especially children and seniors. So that's me.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Wonderful. And now I'd like to invite Brad Hurst up, our programs chair, who's doing an awesome job. And he's going to introduce our speaker for today. Yes, sir. Oh, I'll get you. Yeah. Larry wanted to talk again. So here, Larry.
Just real quick, before we listen to our speaker, I am making the announcement as the non-general chairman of the scholarship committee. The scholarship committee is limping along, if you'll pardon the expression. After a very successful tenure with Nancy Harrington, we are reorganizing. We met Monday afternoon. We had a very successful meeting Monday afternoon, but we're still looking for members to be on the scholarship committee, if you're inclined to do that. We have about 10 people right now, but we are going through an organizational process. And if you have any interest in joining us, please let me know, and we'd be happy to include you. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you for all you're doing. Back to Brad.
Thank you, President Steve. Today we have a family affair of speakers. Seema's husband, Param Singh, is the Chief Technical Officer of Deep Valley. He has 20 years of experience in deep learning. Deep learning, you're in the right spot for that. In cloud computing, and he's going to give us a brief introduction on artificial intelligence. Please welcome Param Singh.
Good afternoon, everyone. So you just heard from the owner, now the employee number one about to speak. So here's my brief introduction. So you can call me Param because the deep part in my name usually makes people drown. So you can just stick to the Param part, my name. So a few objectives of today's session. I mean, this is the first time we're meeting. I don't know the interest level of the people or how much you know about AI. So my objective is to provide a back of the envelope overview of the AI, like maybe if we were sitting in a cafe or something, and see how you guys respond to it, and then like what we can do. So I mean, these days usually people talk mostly about applications of AI, like how you can use it. But I think since it's going to be a major part of our civilization for as long as you can see, it behooves everyone to know at least some like part of how it works. What is in the background, like what are we dealing with here, like what's the way forward and so forth. So I want to keep this chat conversational. So the slides are pretty much for kind of keeping the discussion centered, and also to show you some visuals to put a meaning to some of the stuff I am talking about. But please feel free to raise your hand, ask questions, or segue, because it's all about enlightening all of us, because I know this stuff for a long time. So without much ado, we can start. So as I was just introduced, I have 20 years of experience in a wide gamut of technologies, usually most of the emerging technologies of the time. I mean, and about 4 or 5 years ago, I got very sort of intensely involved in AI. I kind of, from there, it's been a journey which has led us to totally transforming our business and kind of helping our clients use it the right way and so forth. So this is the first slide I usually use with, in fact, a lot of my clients, because a lot of the businesses around us are people who want to use AI or have kind of plans, they don't know what they're dealing with. So let's start philosophically with like what AI exactly is. So over the years, I've come up with distilled with a definition of AI. So we all know what computers are. We've all been exposed to it for decades. And usually a computer is a machine which kind of executes the instructions you give to it one by one faithfully and won't deviate from what it's doing. So you tell it to add 2 numbers, subtract 2 numbers, you write instructions, and it does it. So that's been the classical model of computing so far. But what has happened like in the last, let's say, 10 or 20 years is like we have developed capabilities to, instead of telling the computer what to do, we show it what to do. That, hey, this is what we're doing, and the computer writes the program itself. It writes the algorithm itself. And we may not necessarily understand how that algorithm works, but it works. We can test it, we can refine it, we can advance it. And this whole sort of collection of such techniques where the computer learns from our behavior or what we show it, that you can club it as artificial intelligence. And there's actually nothing artificial about it. Like there's a very well-grounded mathematics around it. I think the reason people tend to gravitate towards the term artificial is because we still do not understand how does the computer create its own algorithm. How does it create a black box of its own, which it uses to solve tasks or newer tasks after we have taught it to solve a certain set of tasks. So there's where the term artificial comes from. And again, I have a very simple taxonomy of artificial intelligence. So it's a broad field, and at the core of it is machine learning, and at the core of that is deep learning. And we'll, at the next slide, we'll see like what that means. So we can move to the next slide. So as you can see, the early days, so elementary applications of AI have been around for longer than you would expect. In fact, for decades. Like there are some of the classical algorithms which statisticians have used, application programmers have used. One of the very famous algorithms is the decision tree, which pretty much everyone has been exposed to, whether you know it or not. Because let's say if you're filling a DNB form, even that uses a decision tree to guide you to the right place. Or I don't know if how many of you have played this old game where you ask this guy, there's a guy on a website and asks you questions and it tells you exactly where you live or how old you are. So all those are examples of decision trees. So like that, we have many classical algorithms which have been around us for a long, long time without realizing. And these algorithms were pretty amenable to the amount of horsepower, the computing power, the computing capacity we had at that time. But suddenly something changed in the last 10 years. And then we can move on to the next slide. What happened was, and this is one of the most important slides, I mean, one can look at, and one of my favorites, which I use to very concisely explain like the core of AI as we know it. So the core of AI today is deep learning. So what is deep learning? So let's start up with a very simple example. Let's say, as I said, I've trained a computer to recognize images. And let's say I've trained it to recognize two images, an elephant and a dog. So I supply an image to it and it breaks it down into parts. And what we see in the middle is a neural network, right in the middle of the slide. And then I'm sure all of you recognize the graphic down there where like several blind people, they are feeling elephant and they try to come up with what it is. And they kind of are able to describe the very discrete parts or like very localized parts of the elephant. So what happens is this neural net behaves in a similar way. It takes an input and it kind of breaks it down. Hey, I see an edge, I see some kind of color and so forth. And then as you move down that network, you're able to put those together. And it's able to make a decision that, hey, even though you guys see these artifacts, I'm able to put it together and I'm pretty sure this is an elephant or a dog and so forth. So this is the basic of all sort of computing as it happens today. Now think about, we just talked about ChatGPT. Think about you want to, let's say, write a poem or you want to write an essay. And you train a neural network like this on all of Wikipedia. And you ask, hey, I've written these 4 lines, what should be the 5th line? So it does the same thing pretty much. It has a very good idea of like, hey, in this current context, this is what the next word should be, or this is what the next phrase should be. So now you can think about infinite number of applications of this technique. Like you could use it for image recognition. You can use it to read radiograms, medical information, write essays, or write, let's say, legal briefs, or whatever you can think about. Any question regarding the slide? I mean, this looks simple, but it's pretty dense at times. No one? And yeah.
Like on the radio about a mother who received a phone call.
Yes.
Her daughter,
Mhm.
wasn't her daughter.
Yeah. It's an application of the same concept. Yeah, so that's an excellent example. So let's say I create a neural network and I make it hear your voice. And it is able to break down the various parts of your, let's say, phonetic library with the way you speak. And then I tell, okay, since you've heard like 2 hours of Nancy's speech, I want you to say this particular sentence in Nancy's speech. So using those bits of artifacts of how you talk is going to assemble that totally new sort of a vocal segment. and be able to deliver it. And the same is true for text. The same is true for images. I just heard somebody mention, I think it was Julie, that your son plays a lot with generating images. So it's again the same concept. You train a really large neural network on like the billions of images, and then it learns artifacts of those images. And then you say, okay, let's put together, let's say, an Arabian horse. So it's going to piece together like what are the artifacts which should belong here from what I know so far, and create a brand new image out of it. So go ahead.
Excuse me, along those lines regarding recognition of the voice, I'm sure we've all been offered by our various financial institutions or whatever to have our voice be our password.
Yes.
And I've always declined that because of fear of
Exactly.
things like this. It's a very small part of it,
Yes.
but I am not gonna do that
Yep.
ever.
And that's
Because
a
they put things together.
Yep.
And then it sounds like your daughter or your
Yeah,
child.
and that's a very interesting point. Actually, it's a very nice or sort of a very valid concern you've raised, because if somebody is able to, let's say, train a program or a neural network of your voice without you knowing, definitely they can reproduce, let's say, something which you've never said, but they're able to reproduce it and kind of pass some kind of a gatekeeper system to get authenticated. Yeah. And that's a very nice sort of a segue, because AI is changing the way we used to kind of look at our world, look at our security, look at like how we interact with different kind of systems around us. It's changing all that. That's why you see like every now and then your bank is going to bother you that, hey, let's harden your security a little more. Let's add something more. Let's have text authentication, because even though if they're not telling you, these are the actual concerns they also are kind of aware of.
I had a question. If I can hear, can you hear me?
In a situation where Larry was talking about voice recognition and communication, can an AI be developed to somehow prompt that?
You could. Yes, you could. And it's a very active area of research. Like, for example, these days there's a big crisis in the university system where students are cheating on their assignments by asking ChatGPT to write their papers and their briefs. So there is a lot of research going on that, hey, can we kind of flip the script around and train another network which is able to detect such kind of plagiarism or such kind of artificial generation of text or speech. And that is kind of successful to a certain extent, but not completely. That is not foolproof yet. Yeah.
Like AI wars.
It is AI wars, yeah.
You have a question, Steve?
Yeah, hey, thanks, Brett. As I understand ChatGPT, or ChatGPT in general, it uses a large language model. So you're
Right.
basically, as you said, you're kind of predicting the next word. And it does so with, amazing, I mean, the capabilities are fantastic. I heard an analogy of this, and I want to see if you agree with it, that in some ways, the way our brains work, our brains are large language models, that we have lots of these little neural nodes, and we're able to process massive amounts of information. And in some ways, the GPT platform it's fairly simple fundamentally, but it just can process massive amounts of information in some way, and our brains are kind of like that. Does that make sense to you?
That does. It's kind of to an extent that is correct, that our brain works like a large language model. But in addition to that, it also works as sort of a multi-model. Sort of, it can do multiple kinds of tasks with the same sort of network we have in our head. So that's the difference, and that's what people are trying to achieve. That try to create a model which can do different tasks. It has a sensitivity for different tasks, and that's what raises the concern for artificial general intelligence or something, or some kind of a system which becomes way more powerful or way more sort of smarter than us.
Thank you.
AI emits incorrect information, either verbally or in written. How do we as lay people recognize that?
So there are two ways to define incorrect information. The first is if you've trained an AI on incorrect information, it's going to emit incorrect information. Let's say if you train an AI model on the onion, and you try to write something, it's going to write something totally, which is like incorrect or false. The other incorrect information is, I would characterize that as inaccurate, which is like it's what it's telling you is not really accurate, but it's best guess. So to understand your question better, your idea of incorrect, is it false information or inaccurate information?
When it says Brad Hurst is thin.
I think like working back from that example, if we were to train it on this cohort of people, it won't make that error. Maybe we can continue. Let's move on. So this is what, like, in a nutshell, like what most of AI effort is kind of concentrated in. And now let's talk why. How did we get here? Like, how did we make this leap from like algorithms which we wrote to algorithms which computers are writing? So there are three main drivers of that. The first is compute capacity. Like we've seen an exponential increase in compute capacity like over the last 10 or 20 years. Like your smartwatch has way more compute capacity than all of Apollo program had or could ever have heard of having. The second is like we have a lot of data. Like if you, let's say, rewind to about 25 years ago, it was very difficult to find any kind of good information on the internet. It was very scattered. It was like usually very informal. But now the internet is the go-to source for everything, like publicly available data for anything, everything. And there's also a lot of curated data. A lot of companies, a lot of businesses have formed on the basis of us curating and selling this data, like OpenAI, you have Palantir. And then the third one is we have extremely capable AI models. I mean, and that's a direct consequence of the very first point, that is compute capacity. Like as the compute capacity kind of grew exponentially, people were free, or like designers or researchers were free to make really powerful models, really large models. And they had like a no constraint, no holds barred kind of approach to that. So all those factors have driven or kind of brought us to where we are, like where you every day you hear some kind of a new AI being launched. I mean, some kind of a new model being launched. And that's all because of these three primary driving factors. Any question regarding that?
Recent article I read was questioning whether AI can invent. And which seems to come up with answers to things that may already exist.
I mean, when we say if AI could invent, what we're doing is we're asking the question, can AI reason? Because that's the prerequisite of inventing. And that again is a very vast research field, and there has been like limited progress in there where people have been able to sort of demonstrate that there are certain AI programs, certain sort of systems which show this sort of a reasoning capability, but not to a point where they can do something or kind of invent something substantial, the way the human brain kind of functions.
Let's take two examples. One is the stock market. Can predict anything?
It's one of the toughest nut to crack, and a lot of AI markets, AI efforts focused on predicting the stock market have not worked out too well.
Except when I designed that. Except when is medicine and not with
and yeah, and that's the more promising field for a breakthrough, because AI is one of the most promising techniques which is used for new drug discovery now. And at the base of all this drug discovery is discovering new proteins. And now AI is being used in a very mainstream way, in a very serious way, to predict which protein can be used for a, let's say, cure of a certain disease or as a countermeasure to a certain molecule and so forth. And that's one of the biggest sort of the bright spots where people have a lot of hope that instead of spending 15, 20 years developing a new drug molecule, AI will take us to a place where we'll be able to do it in months. So we started with the general overview of AI and then like what AI is today, basically deep learning and neural networks. And then we talked about what kind of led to this very extensive proliferation of neural networks. And now is one of the biggest examples of what that has led to. And so one of the biggest application or one of the biggest successes of neural networks has been large language models, as a lot of us just alluded to. So again, I have a very elementary definition of my own, like what is a LLM? So given a sequence of words, predict the next word, which is most likely to follow next in the context of the predecessor phrase. So this is a very, very sort of elementary definition of neural networks, that, hey, you have this neural network and then you expose it to, let's say, a lot of data, whole of Wikipedia, or not even that, let's say all of Library of Congress, or let's say anything you have on the internet, which is actually very common these days. Like most of these big companies, they scrape everything and everything which is available on the internet. And then you train it. Then you teach it that, hey, if you see, let's say, this particular sentence or these 4 words, what is the most likely word to come? So it is trained to predict that next word or next sentence in context. For example, if you ask it a legal question, it's going to supplement the remaining part with a legal answer, not with a medical answer. It gets smarter. And we're just talking, and there's a very, very simple example, sort of a hello world example of how it works. So let's say I've taught a neural network and language model, and I write the phrase in black over here. And then I ask it, okay, hey, what do you think the next word is? And it comes, hey, it should be this word. So here are a very few basic concepts about language models. So the most important is the predicted word or phrase or sentence, I mean, even now. And then the backbone of all LLM is the context length, like how long or how far they can maintain context. For example, here the context length is like 8 or 9 words. But now the newer language models that we're seeing have context lengths of thousands of words, like 10,000 words, 8,000 words, which means you just prompt the model that, hey, write me a book on, let's say, history of Pleasanton, and be able to write the whole book, because it can maintain context for like 8,000, 10,000 words, which is like a book or more than a book. Listen, and similarly, you can say, hey, draft me a lease agreement for the city of Hayward, and keep in mind it has regulation, blah, blah, blah. And it'll be smart enough to do that too, because it has learned all.
How does the feedback mechanism work? So let's say, for example, this prints out quick brown fox jumps over the lady's frog. Who tells it that's not right?
So yeah,
and then learn like, oh, frog's not right.
This happens during training, because when we feed it data, I mean, as we're feeding it, we're checking if it did good or not and scoring it. And we force the system or the neural network to keep that negative score as low as possible, which is also called the loss score. So once you do it this way, once you show it billions of documents, thousands of times, it figures out, hey, this is what I should be output. And that's the basis of all large language models, and pretty much the basis of most of AI research, what is happening these days.
But outside of training, like in ChatGPT,
it's continuously learning.
there's a way that says, hey, that's not really what I'm looking for.
If you flag those errors, it's kind of fed back, and during the next iteration, it kind of picks it up.
Yeah, I was thinking about it like, all the music programs. I can say I like that song, or I don't like that song.
Exactly.
Curate what you like.
Yeah. And also it's a big question of like what kind of data has been trained. Like most of the commercially available models, which you pay a fee for, they are trained on curated data. And that's why they have a sort of expense associated with them.
What's the LLMs?
large language models. Large. Yes.
So, I heard that when you did a Google search, depending on what part of the country you're in, it will show you different things. If you're in California, it'll show you something, or part of California is something different than Kansas or whatever. So how much of AI is going to be slanted with opinion, you know? the
Yeah.
difference of opinions?
There's a term for that in computer science. It's called GIGO, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. So if you train it on enough garbage, it's going to spit the same garbage out. But if you train it on valid stuff, if you train it on credible stuff, it's going to be totally credible at the end of the day. And that's why you see the rise of these really like sort of highly rated companies like OpenAI, Palantir. Because what they did was they spent years and years collecting all this data, billions of documents, made sure they were properly annotated, they were accurate, and then they trained their systems, AI systems, using that data, which means the output is very credible. Steve.
You hear a lot of talk about jobs disappearing because of AI. Could you maybe talk what you think?
Definitely. I mean, definitely there will be jobs which disappear, but not to the extent which we think. And that's my personal opinion, because what I see is like there'll be sort of a challenge for people who do not use AI for their jobs. So there'll be two cohorts of people now going forward, like ones who really leverage AI for their jobs and those who don't. And those who don't will be challenged, because definitely the productivity of the people who leverage AI will be much higher, those who do not. And so then, of course, there will be some really like rudimentary jobs which will go away, and they are going away. For example, a lot of your calls you get on your phones are going to be driven by AI agents. They'll be able to talk with you for like half an hour, 1 hour, no problem at all. They'll be able to maintain the context going forward. And you'll never know like who's talking to you. Similarly, like most of the text-based support, let's say you have an issue with your modem and you open a chat window, hey, help me out, I can connect to the internet. Most of that is done by AI agents. There's nobody on the other side of the line. So in the same way, like similar jobs, which you can imagine, they will definitely go away. But like for most jobs, like most professional jobs, you'll see like a differentiation between people who successfully leverage AI and who do not.
This has been going on for thousands of
It
years.
has been.
As technology
Exactly.
changes,
Yeah.
you migrate to what's the buggy whip manufacturers are not real happy today.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
And that's their fault, because they did that.
Yep. And so are the saddle makers.
Leverage professionally. Sometimes people who are going to, let's take an example of your primary physician. He may leverage with AI, but the patient may say, well, I don't need the doctor because I can just put in a lot of parameters and come up with an answer and just circumvent medical predictions.
Yep.
So the AI, I don't think can be compassionate with a bedside manner, but
Yep. Theoretically possible. Yep.
yeah, you're right. So how do you create a balance where you use your personal diagnostic versus relying on that?
I think in that sphere of our life, a lot of regulation or regulatory framework comes into the picture. Let's say you say, hey, I've diagnosed myself, I have this bacterial infection. But the FDA might say, hey, even very good, I mean, you did that, but we still won't let you get a medicine or kind of, let's say, self-prescribe yourself anything. You'll have to go to a medical practitioner for that. So there's a huge regulatory angle to that.
We have time for one more question, and hopefully you've gotten through your presentation.
We are the last slide.
Let's not worry yet.
Okay, let's go to the one, right, this one. So I mean, I think in a lot of my meetings, I get this question like, hey, when will AI wipe us out? Like, as if it's the matrix already, what will happen? So that is still an open question. So there are a lot of arguments for it, like a lot of researchers and are like very on Elon Musk, he's a big time AI doomsayer. And then we have arguments against it. So I put together a few like sort of bites as to why we should worry and why we should not worry. So one of the biggest thing that comes to mind is like, again, going to the compute capacity, like our available compute capacity, something which you can buy or kind of sign on to, is way more than our brains will ever be able to calculate. So from that, one could extrapolate that, hey, then using that capacity, we could have some entity which can think better or act better than us too. But that hasn't happened yet. So the second point kind of reparts said that, hey, we haven't gotten any conclusive evidence that can happen. And sometimes in science, we look at evidence around us that, hey, we hypothesize that, let's say, this thing can be done. And then we look at evidence that if that can be done, is there evidence for that? And let's say if we hypothesize that AGI or artificial general intelligence is already amongst us. So, okay, then why haven't we been able to solve self-driving problem yet? Which means it's probably not there yet. Similarly, like we are getting models, AI models or networks, which are like able to do multiple tasks. So they are learning to behave like human brains that, hey, I can walk and I can talk and I can read too, stuff like that. And then at the same time, some researchers say that, hey, some of these models are plateauing. They're kind of showing a sort of tempering in how well they can work. And then at the last, like humans, was the biggest argument against, let's say, AI will be able to take us on. Because I think I should have augmented with that humans change a lot. Like we are very different from what parents were, what were the 2 generations before us and so forth. So will AI be able to catch up? Like with the way we think or how we change our thinking every 25 years again. So it's an open question. So conclusion is, let's not worry yet until we see any conclusive evidence. Having said that,
Thank you, Param. Very interesting. We'll have to follow what you said. Hopefully most of the things come true, the good ones anyway. Opportunity drawing. Julio, we got what, $23? Could you see maybe Param can pick the pick 2? You want me to do it? All right, okay. Oh, they don't have sense. So the first one is here. 930 is the last 3 numbers. 930.
Bill Burke.
Oh, Bill Burke, yeah. And then 933. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, one more time.
933. Yeah, I think he does, yes. While he's picking, there's a few upcoming events that we haven't really talked about that I just want to make sure you know, other than hearing from Mike. On September 15th, Amador High School is celebrating their 100th anniversary that whole weekend, and there may be an opportunity for us to volunteer for some things. I know Jake is working on that. On September 16th, that same weekend, Alameda County Veterans Stand Down is happening at the fairgrounds. So he'll be sending more information out about that. Jake will, our community service chair. And then on November 4th, this is definite, we're going to do a joint event with Pleasant North Rotary at Kids Against Hunger from 10 a.m. to 12:30. So he'll be sending out information on that as well. And I'd just like to share what some of the other clubs are doing. They're close by. Club of Livermore Valley is holding a lithium battery recycling on September 24th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. I have a flyer here if you want more information on that. And of course, their chili cook-off is on October 7th. And then district events. We have, actually, I will be sending this out later tomorrow, the fellowship leadership meeting is going to be held on August 2nd at 5:30. That's happening next week. And our new district governor's doing some fun stuff that night. So that's all by Zoom. So you could, if you don't have anything going on, you could listen to that. And I'll also send more details on the avenues of service once we have that, which is April 26th through 28th and so forth. So those are the upcoming events. Thank you all for coming. We are adjourned.